Welcome to the Wine Chemist. In this series, we'll be breaking down the elements of wine, and in this episode, we're focusing on oak. Helping me through this episode is Rioja. After the winemaking process, the vintner may decide to age their wine in oak. Prior to seeing oak, wine has its primary flavors and aromas. These are all of the flavors that come directly from the grapes, including fruit, floral, minerals, and herbs. When stored in oak, the porous barrel allows the wine to swell and release within the wood over time. This is where the organics within the wine extract and combine with those within the oak. Here is where the wine develops its secondary flavors. These flavors include smoke, spice, dried fruit, toast, nut, cocoa, and roasted coffee, to name a few. This happens because of the molecules within the oak. Phenols and aldehydes are the major players. These are the chemicals that interact with wine to develop the flavors and aromas that we perceive. The goal is to always enhance the primary flavors and not have the secondary steal the show, so the winemaker may limit the overall oak effect on wine. How do we limit oak's impact? Think of a barrel like a tea bag. At first use, it adds the most amount of flavors, but upon second and third use, it's very dilute, until at some point there are no more chemicals to extract. This is what happens to oak barrels. New oak barrels add higher levels of phenols and aldehydes, while neutral and used barrels simply soften wine and add minimal flavor impact. When wine has seen oak, it does not mean it necessarily tastes like wood. Varietals interact with oak differently. When Chardonnay interacts with the molecules in oak, it results in flavors and aromas of vanilla, brioche, caramel, toast, and hazelnut. But when those same oak molecules are introduced to Pinot Noir, we taste and smell cinnamon, clove, cedar, nutmeg, and smoke. Aging in oak also allows additional chemical reactions. Young, harsh tannins in red wine are exposed to low levels of oxygen and begin to polymerize or soften. Bright malic acid softens to lactic acid as the wines slowly go through degrees of malolactic fermentation. And since oak contains tannins, aging in oak is a way for the winemaker to add tannins to some wines that have very limited tannins on their own, so those wines can further age in the finished bottle. Now that we know why winemakers may decide to age their wines in oak, let's learn how to taste its effect. Many regions age wines in oak with varying time and barrel age. There's one place that has strict rules on oak and aging: Rioja. This region in Spain is going to help you taste the effects of oak. Red wines from Rioja are predominantly made from Tempranillo, and they have specific classifications. If the wine sees no oak, it is simply labeled Rioja or called Cosecha. Tasting this wine allows us to single out the bright red fruit flavors and high acidity. Next, Crianza must see a minimum of 1 year in oak and 1 year bottle aging. Reserva sees a minimum of 1 year in oak and 2 years in bottle. These styles show vanilla and spice and a softening of texture. Lastly, Gran Reserva requires 2 years in oak and 3 years in bottle. These exhibit a much richer, drier, rounder, and complex flavor profile. Rioja provides several wines from the same region using the same grapes, with the only variable being the aging. This is a perfect way to taste through these wines and recognize the flavors, aromas, and textures that oak contributes. In this episode, we learned that oak aging affects wine in many ways. Without oak, the wine shows all of its primary flavors and bright acids. Time in oak adds a multitude of secondary aromas and tastes, not just oaky. Oak also provides the winemaker with malolactic fermentation to reduce the acid levels. And the time in barrel allows the softening of tannins through aiding in their polymerization. Finally, we now have some homework to do as we taste through the classifications of reds from Rioja, specifically looking at the flavors, aromas, complexity, body, and texture to fully experience the effects that oak aging has on red wine. Until the next time on The Wine Chemist, here's to experimenting with wine. Cheers.